We got my brother's car here. What is this, Caliber?
Caliber.
What year is it?
07.
07 Caliber. Hearing all this clunking noise. The sway bar. The real problem here is the subframe is rotted away. You can even see a hole right there, and it's just rotted all the way around. So I'm guessing the sway bar brackets just gave up the ghost and broke off, and there's really nothing to attach them to at this point. So the logical thing here is to just remove the sway bar and call it a day, unless someone's willing to invest the money to replace the entire subframe and then the sway bar, but that's not gonna happen. So let's try to get this sway bar out of here. There goes the sway bar. Cut that off. It's one way to take care of your noise. It's the first time I ever had to cut off a sway bar. I guess it's the first time for everything, huh? That's crazy.
It's not how you can just
no more noise now. Here we've got a 2013 Impala. It's here because it has a small EVAP leak. Yesterday it showed up, and very quickly I looked at it, to check the purge valve, which is the most common on this system. So I checked it with the car running, unplugged the connector. Well, we had vacuum here with the connector plugged in, and once I unplugged the connector, there was no more vacuum out of this side. So I told the woman, okay, the purge valve seems like it's working, so that's not going to be it. I'm going to have to smoke test the system to see what's going on, see where the leak is at. So after I pretty much eliminated the purge valve, I decided to smoke the rest of the system, and on my smoke machine the flow gauge was like bottomed out, like 0. It could absolutely not go any lower. So I'm like, this thing is showing there's no leak in this car. So after 15 minutes of messing around, come back to the purge valve, and now you guys can probably see that I don't have a lot of PSI coming through here. It's like almost nothing. So if I put air through the back, you can see it's coming right out the front. Doesn't matter which way I do it. Go from this side. There you go. It's coming right out that side also. It's not sealing like it should. So at the end of the day, it turned out to be a intermittent bad purge valve, because yesterday it was working, today it shows up and it's not working. So here goes the problem right here. It sucks that it was intermittent, because it cost me a ton of time thinking the car had a leak when it was really the purge valve. So I guess the reason why I'm putting out this video is because just because you test something and it checks out fine doesn't mean it is fine. Things can intermittently work. So perfect example right here. This car just needs a purge valve. This Honda Accord back in the garage. It's a what year is this one? 2001. So this is that Accord that got dropped off. It had a crazy oil leak, and it was leaking oil all over my driveway. It doesn't look like it's leaking anymore, so I guess the guy got it fixed. I don't know if he had the oil pan replaced, but we're going to need the car and look at it. Another thing is, this is the same car that the owner had a complaint about no brake lights, and I diagnosed that it was missing some sort of module that sits back here, and I told him to go on eBay. He found one, and it looks like he replaced it himself. It's that easy. I told him he just pull this back, plug it in, it should be all set. You can see the new module is sitting right here. He didn't bother to install it where it should be. It's just kind of sitting back here, but I haven't heard from him ever since, so I'm gonna assume installing this module fixed his no brake lights. Isn't that crazy that your brake lights actually work when everything is plugged in? So the owner's having a few different issues. He said he's not getting gas mileage that he used to. He noticed it's idling higher, and that's probably why. He could smell gasoline coming from where you put gas. That's what he said. Makes sense to me, right? Said there's a bit of a grinding noise coming from up front, and I know it's got new pads, new rotors all the way around, new calipers. Apparently I didn't do it, but it's got basically all the brakes done all the way around everything. First thing, I come over here, I took it out for a test drive, and I could hear the noise, and I noticed that the dust shield behind the rotor was actually rubbing on the rotor. So I just went ahead and pushed that back, and no more noise. So it's a simple fix. But basically he wants me to look over the car and see if it's even worth fixing. He wants to know if it's just best to get rid of it. So there's these issues. He said he also has an issue with water getting inside the cabin. He said he noticed in the foot area over here, all this is wet, and at one point even his seatbelt was wet. And it's most likely going to be because of the sunroof on this car. Probably the drains are clogged. A lot of vibrations inside the cabin. Probably old worn out engine mounts. See, we have a cracked radiator. You can see all this is wet right here. So antifreeze is slowly seeping out of here. The subframe is completely rotted out over here. So this thing, you could see it. Look at that, how it's collapsed. It is not supposed to be like that. There's absolutely nothing left of that subframe. My honest opinion about this car is get rid of it, junk it, do whatever, because it's gonna be a lot of money to fix all the issues that's going on with this car. And sometimes it's hard for a person to let go of a car. You know, see, it's got a new starter on it, new pads, new rotors, new calipers all the way around. Apparently got the oil pan fixed because it's not leaking like crazy. New battery, new wires for the battery. When they dump a lot of money into a car, it's hard for them to justify letting go of it. This thing has just about 170,000 on the clock. Let's go ahead and check codes, see what's going on here. So it turns out we don't have any codes pending for the engine, which is kind of surprising. But we do have ABS and SRS codes, which it's not really a big issue. But everything on the drive cycle monitors has completed. So essentially this thing can pass the emissions without an issue. Alright, so I pulled the sunroof back and you can see where the drains are at. I don't see anything obstructing the drains. So I guess we could try to find the other end of where it actually leaks out and see if that's clogged. I just got a cup of water. I'm gonna go ahead and pour it into this drain right here. And I can see it's going down, but slowly. Alright, let's look down here. And I already see an issue. Look at this. So that's not good. You definitely don't want water pouring all over these wires and electronics and things like that. Modules. You can see this module right here is already wet. Alright, so I found the drain tube. Just putting my hand in through right here. And there goes the tube right there, you see it? So this problem right here should be fixed. I grabbed this nylon tubing, which I have a complete kit for. I believe it's just fuel lines. I thought I was gonna have to use some sort of adapter or something like this, but really this OD of this plastic tube fits very, very snug in the tube, in the drain tube that's coming from the top. So with some silicone lubricant, sorry about the wind noise. So with some silicone lubricant on this plastic tube, it slid right into the drain tube very nice and snug, so it's not gonna come off. And then I just cut a short section of it off, and it's actually going into the drain tube. So let's see if I can get this for you. There's just so much crap inside of here. So you can see right there, I got my little nylon tube connecting the drain hose to the actual rubber grommet that leads outside the car. I hope you could see that right there. So that's never gonna come out. The tube is going far enough into the drain tube, and it's going far enough into that rubber grommet that leads outside the car. That is never gonna pop out again, and it's not going to leak. Let's go ahead and test it. So once again, I'm gonna go ahead and pour water in. And there goes the water. You can see now the drain tube is doing what it has to do instead of going inside the car. While we're doing this, we might as well check both sides. So let's go ahead and pour some water on the front right side. Alright, let's go see where it's coming out of. Not really seeing anything. Don't tell me this one's leaking inside too. Check the carpet over here. Oh yeah, it's wet. Oh, dang it. Alright, so let's pull this out and let's get this one fixed. Alright, so the front passenger side is way more involved. I had to unplug all the harnesses from here I just kind of stuff them down through here. As you can see, I got everything down here now, so it's a freaking nightmare. But now I could finally reach my hand inside of here and I could actually feel the tube now. So I'm gonna see if I could try to do what I did on the other side to get this issue fixed. Yeah, the tube popped out of the little rubber grommet. It's the same exact thing that happened on the other side. It just baffles me on why there isn't enough slack in this thing. It just goes to show that when they make these cars, I mean, they are cutting every little millimeter to them counts, you know, because if it's a penny, well, a penny across millions of cars equals up to a lot of money. All right, so that's why they skimp out on wherever they can. If something doesn't have to be, you know, a quarter inch longer than it has to, then they're not going to do it. Simple as that. All right, so I managed to pull the tube out from right here. You can see there goes the original tube, and I've got this new hose pushed in, maybe about 3/8. It's in there pretty good, and I had to use a lot of force to get it inside of here, even with the silicone lube. So it's in there nice and tight. It's not going to fall out on its own. Now I just have to put this end inside of the rubber grommet way back there, the one that leads outside. All right, so I'm all done here. It's impossible to show you guys. Well, not done as in everything's put together, but I mean as far as putting the tube where it has to go. So let's go ahead and test it with some more water. You should see the water coming outside instead of inside the car. Alright, so it's going in, draining. And there we go. Bob's your uncle. It's coming right out of where it's supposed to, because this drain tube is like behind this fender liner. So that's good. It's draining outside now. It's no longer draining inside the car. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and put all of this mess of wires back where they belong. My freaking hands are killing me. I have small hands, okay? And it's tight for me to get in there. It was like really tight. It hurt me real bad. I can't imagine the bigger guys out there. You know, there's plenty of big guys working on cars, and I have no idea how they do it. They must get someone else who works in the shop. They must get the smallest guys to do jobs like this, because I don't know, I just can't imagine. If you're a big guy, leave a comment below. How do you deal with issues like this where you got to put tiny little hands into places? Do you just get someone else to do it, or what? Now I'm at the rear of the car. The owner said there's a clunking noise back here. First thing I noticed is stabilizer links on both sides are worn out, and then the bushings for the sway bar are also worn out. Yep, ton of play in these links. Got a 2014 Jeep Patriot, I believe. Just got towed in. Owner believes that the alternator isn't working, so I just went ahead, started up the car. And yeah, we do not have charging voltage at the battery, but look at this mess that's going on here. You know, we got like a drywall screw on the positive side. The negative side has, you know, all this crap going on. Anyway, it's not charging. You turn it on and the alternator is howling like you wouldn't believe. This thing is super loud. So it's going to need a new alternator. Alright, so I got the belt off of this Jeep, and we definitely have a bad alternator. This is what's making all the noise. Alright, so let's get this thing pulled out of here and put this AutoZone alternator on. Get in the zone! AutoZone. Got the alternator off of the car, and this thing is completely spanked. Not too bad of a job. Main thing is you have to move the AC compressor out of the way. You see it's just lowered and it's just hanging. Don't worry, the lines are more than strong enough to hold this thing. There's no actual stress on them or anything. Sure, you couldn't rest it on a box if you wanted to, but it would just be in the way. This thing is solid. You could barely even move it if you wanted to. It'll stay right there. No harm is going to come to it. It was a new alternator. It's a rebuilt one from the zone. At least it feels nice and smooth. Looking at the backside right here, the connector's all dirty. And inside of here you can see this. If they were going to rebuild it, they could at least have decency of cleaning this up, you know what I mean? Not once, not twice, but wait, there's more. Triple tested. Was it because you weren't sure the first 2 times? You gotta love these rebuilt ones. I'm just about done here. see, I got the alternator in. Everything is tight and bolted down. Got the belt on it, and it's pretty much ready for a startup. Got the battery reconnected. You can see we are just under 12 volts here. The car should start, hopefully. It already sounds a lot better. And there we go, it's charging. So that's a fix. I'm gonna turn it off and finish putting everything back together. Gotta put on this shield that goes underneath the car. And that's it. Pop the wheel on it, take it out for a test drive, make sure it's all set, and that'll be it for this one. And it's back. This is the one I just put that alternator on. It's back to get the rest of the work done. So we are getting 2 outer tie rods, front and left. You can see how much this shakes. The front left side is also getting a lower ball joint, a set of front stabilizer links, and we're getting a new strut on the front right side only. The front left side looks to be okay. I don't see it leaking or anything like that, but the front right side is leaking. We're gonna reuse the original spring. We're just gonna change the strut assembly. This should be fun. Look at that. Here goes the cage that came off from around it. Came off in pieces. Just everything's just rotted away. I can't seem to get the axle nut off. That thing is just like welded in place. And I can't get the pin out either, but I was just gonna run the axle nut over it. It'll tear it right off, not an issue, and then I could put a new one in. But I tried heating up the nut as much as I can, even using the mini ductor for a while until that thing was hot, and it still won't budge at all. Even using my big Milwaukee gun, won't budge at all. Okay, so new plan. Just decided to take the knuckle off from the strut and the lower control arm and just try to move it aside, and hopefully we have enough space. Sorry, I'm going through puberty. Hopefully I have enough space here to change the lower ball joint. Alright, so I got that lower ball joint pressed out. It actually came out easier, and it was faster to just move all this stuff aside than it is to mess around with this junk right here. There goes the ball joint. What sucks is the day she ever needs a wheel bearing, this is gonna suck if it even ever wants to come apart. I guess that's a problem for another day. But as you can see, I already went ahead and replaced the outer tie rod. And let's press in this new lower ball joint. And there we go, new ball joint is pressed in. It has this large nut that gets screwed in on the bottom after you press it in, so that's nice and tight. Got the Zerk fitting on it, and I pumped some extra grease inside of it. The kit even came with a new pinch bolt that goes right here to clamp onto the ball joint, so that's nice. I already cut the stabilizer link, as you can see, and I'm just gonna remove this and install a new one. Now I'm on the front right side. As you can see, I already replaced the outer tie rod. The stabilizer link, I just cut it off because I'm removing the strut assembly, so there's no reason to fight with the upper portion of the stabilizer link. Just cut it off, it's getting replaced anyway. As you can see, the strut assembly is off of the car. Here it goes right here. You can see how all of this is just moist and all of that right there nice and wet. So we're actually just going to replace the strut. We're going to reuse the spring and the top pad. I don't normally do this. I normally just replace the whole unit. Why not? We could save the owner a few bucks here by just replacing the strut alone. So let me get my spring compressor and I'll get this knocked out. And there we go. We got the new tie rod, new stabilizer links, new strut on this side, and the other side got a new lower ball joint. So this one's pretty much all set. Everything's torqued down. It's good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and put the wheels on it and take it out for a test drive. I'm all taking this Jeep for a test drive, and prognosis is good. Front end's nice and quiet. There's no more wobbly anything. Everything is just super smooth. Initially she had an issue with whenever she turns the steering wheel, there was just loud squealing, and it was a dried out lower ball joint. But everything's nice and quiet now. Hits bumps and super smooth, no clunking noises or anything. Another issue she was having, like when she first brought me the car to look at it, was it sounded like the rear differential was completely like destroyed, because every time she would make a left or right turn, all this knocking noise would come from the rear end. And she took it to like 2 different shops, and they both told her it needed a rear differential. What's really weird is soon after that, maybe a few days after I first looked at it, I didn't tell her. I didn't know what was wrong with it, but it sounds like the differential, okay, and I don't do that type of work. But a few days after that, the alternator went bad, and that's when I replaced the alternator on this Patriot. I just found out that the owner said ever since I did the alternator, the rear end stopped clunking completely, and I can confirm that because I'm driving it around, and what used to sound like a destroyed differential, like all the gears are just grinding and everything was messed up, is perfectly fine now, which is really weird. So I wonder if something back there is computer controlled and that module wasn't getting the voltage that it wanted because of the bad or the alternator that was starting to go bad. I have no idea. Now that the alternator is fixed, it's acting how it should, but the noise is completely gone. So she was ready to put a differential in this thing, and the bill was quite high from other shops. So I don't know, but it's all done. No more noise from the back, no more noise from the front, and it's ready to go.